Hello again. I'm Errin Haines, editor at large for the 19th, and I'm now joined today by somebody that I've been in conversation with many times, but I'm happy to be in conversation with today as we talk about justice. And that's Tarana J. Burke, Chief Vision Officer and founder of MeToo International. Tarana, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me again. Always a pleasure.
Same. Well, I just want to start off by asking you to weigh in on our theme. We've talked a lot about what justice means, especially around the work that you do.
Yeah, obviously I think about justice a lot in my work. And I think that, I think we might have talked about this before, but we talk about healing justice a lot in our work. And people have heard the word, the term social justice. I think we have to expand the way we think about justice in this country, in particular in the United States, because for us, many of us have been socialized to only think about justice in a sort of law and order framework, right? It's in crime and punishment framework. It is, people commit a crime, there has to be punishment, and it goes inside of this legal system that we have that we know is deeply flawed and in many ways unjust. We have so many statistics and data and all kinds of anecdotal data and actual statistics that let us know that the system of so-called justice that we have in this country is actually biased and discriminatory and systemically racist. And so what we count on for this justice doesn't actually deliver. And when it comes to survivors of sexual violence, it is even more flawed, right? The people who we go to for justice actually can be perpetrators of that violence. I was just watching the documentary I Am Evidence. If people haven't seen it, there's a wonderful documentary called I Am Evidence that talks about the rape kit backlog in this country, which is a perfect example, right? These are people, women, largely women, who after experiencing sexual violence get rape kits done because that's what we're taught, right? There's a crime. In order to get punishment, you get this rape kit. And there are cities like Detroit that had like 11,000 rape kits backlogged. Where's the justice in that? And so I think that we have to expand our understanding of what justice could and should look like in this country. When it comes to survivors of sexual violence, justice has to be defined first and foremost by the people who were harmed. If we shifted our thinking to a harm and harm reduction framework, then justice could be more organically come from the people who were harmed. Folks from the right talk about and preach morality all the time, but from a morality standpoint, really, people who are on a basic level, when you harm somebody, there should be accountability, period. But also the person who you harm should be in a position to say how they want that, what they want that accountability to look like.
Tarana, what you're saying is making me think about also kind of what justice can look like and for whom, right? Especially when we start to think about those intersections of race, of gender, justice looking different for members of the LGBTQ community around sexual violence, certainly looking different for Black, Latino, Asian American women, the Indigenous community. Talk to me about how we can talk about changing culture in a way that gets justice in a more equitable way as well.
Well, first we have to stop lumping folks together, right? I think it's we like to say BIPOC and sort of put everybody in a neat little, but I think that each community, just like we talk about survivors need to define what justice looks like for them, individual communities have individual needs. So that's something that's also necessary for us to talk to these people inside of their communities and talk about what these communities want and need and what justice looks like for their communities, right? We don't have mainstream, nuanced conversations about justice. And our friend Latasha Brown, I was with her recently, and she said something that was so poignant and beautiful. And she talked about having a vision for liberation. And that really sat for me, and a vision for justice. I think that is also something that's really important. we're not thinking about what justice should look like. So we're just responding to the injustice. You know what I mean? We're just constantly responding to injustice. We see injustice, we go and respond to it, but we're not envisioning what actual justice could look like. So we also should, in these discussions, not just be fighting and arguing about the injustice. We should be visioning what justice could look like and should look like for all of us. And it's not going to be universal, to be different, but we can put our visions forward, and in the places where they are similar or we have some overlap, we can fight for that together. In the places where they're not, we can uplift each other. But I think that's really important.
I do want to ask, though, about the survivors agenda that you have, just in terms of the whole MeToo movement being about the power of story, right? And for survivors to really say, to your point about harm reduction and being able to articulate their wants and needs for what justice can look like. Talk about what the survivors agenda is and how you think that can help advance the cause of justice for survivors.
So in 2020, around the election, a group of organizations, the MeToo International, the National Women's Law Center, National Domestic Workers Alliance, and Farm Worker Women got together to talk about putting this initiative, Survivors Vote. And what that was about was really harnessing the power of survivors as a voting bloc. And, Monica Ramirez, who is a brilliant, brilliant strategic mind, she was the force behind the original idea for Time's Up. She's been just a brilliant strategic mind around the movement to end sexual violence, was thinking about how do we bring survivors together to think about what our agenda is moving forward. And so I was really, really interested. I've been really, really interested in what it looks like to harness the power of survivors, because people always engage survivors from a place of weakness, right? From a place of pity. And I'm like, you're looking at a group of people who've already overcome the hardest things you can overcome. That in and of itself is powerful. So these are a powerful group of people. So anyway, we all come together and decide that we want to build an agenda that is created by survivors for survivors. And so Survivors Vote morphed into the Survivors Agenda, which was just that. We got survivor-led and survivor-servant organizations from across the country to survey their constituents around 7 or 8 different areas. And we came up with what survivors wanted to see around policy, around culture, around the way this country needs to move forward to support survivorship. And this agenda, it's at you can see it at survivorsagenda.org. And it really is, it's a beautiful document. It's a beautiful piece of a beautiful piece of policy, but also this document that really is a statement to what survivors have to say about ourselves. And it's never been done before. And so, and it was made up of more than 30 or 40 survivor organizations. And so now we've come together to talk about what we're going to do next, how we're going to work together across the field to move this agenda forward. And so it's been amazing to just work. This is not a competition. This has been one of the best moments in my career in movement work, because I have seen people who have just, it's challenging sometimes to work in movement. And this has been a moment where I think people have seen this is an opportunity for us to really just expand the field and get a lot of work done, a lot of work that we've been trying to get done for a long time. And I think people are taking advantage of that, particularly in this moment.
Well, we definitely are going to stay tuned to see exactly how that plays out. Thank you so much, Tarana Burke, for sharing just your vision of justice and the work that you were and are doing and how you're using your platform to get justice for survivors. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.